The Ring of Dame Thardwine, Book 15. The Secret Plot to Stop Ioland's Rot. Power over his fellows is all man desires, for in his mind the world is properly ordered, and his fellows created that they might bring his world into being, that he might live in ease through all his days. For this reason he creates orders for his fellows, and places them each according to his need of them, himself placed atop them all. But in the moment of creation the good God made man, not in parts but in whole, perfect. The brotherhood of man is eternal, forged together as a great chain whose links are unbreakable. No right has he to set himself above his fellows. No right has he to forget the perfect life of creation when his brothers were born. No right has he to force his fellow to labor for him. But man is a lowly creature with lofty mind, and while dreaming of great goodness enacts only evil upon creation. May he remember always his place in all things, and his humble size in the world, and know his only salvation is found in his fellow, not in ruling over him, but in lifting him up with himself. Ioland was lost to the Aolish in that time as the victorious Daona settled their kingdoms. Battles were fought, but the Tella had not the strength for victory, and would not join together for their many quarrels. Soon the Ioland Tyre was divided among the kings, as was promised between them. And even that mighty people, the Drocht Ballon, were placed beneath the Daona. King Halvavar Brightstone placed his hall in the hills of Iobolam. King Ragnaros took the hall of the Drocht Ballon for his own, and sent fast ships to Daona, calling his many people to come to the green shores. King Svoren set his hall before the unfalling walls of Tel Drim. King Crauken the Cruel set his seat in the lands of the wee Arden, and there began his cruelties. Of all the Aolish, only the men of Amach Es remained free, and of these there were few. Dark were those days, and many free-born Aolish were made thralls to toil for the Daona, or else were taken across the bitter sea into halls which had never known the good God. Yet most Aolish were permitted to farm the same fields as their forefathers, only now giving that tribute which was once owed their kin to barbarians. The kings cared little of the faith true, which the Aolish worshipped, and left the Aolish to worship properly in their own way, though Crauken killed those men of the good God as he found them. Ragnaros allowed the holy men to do their labor, but he did seek to turn the church of the Drocht Ballon to a great dark temple to his cruel gods. He stripped the crosses and all images of him from the walls, and brought many sacrificial animals into the holy hall until the church was a barn. But before their sacrilege could begin, a bolt of lightning sprang from the clear sky and set alight the church until all which remained was cinder. Never again did Ragnaros seize a church or harass the faithful in the proper course of their worship, but he built many sinful temples upon the green soil of Ioland. Time marches forward always, and nothing may change his path. Ever does he leave the world changed in his wake. Ever does he bring the new to see the light of dawn, and keep the old for his own. And once he collects some piece of the world, it never returns. Thus the innocent age died, and was never seen again in all the world, and darkness swept over the isle. A Daona age, cruel and capricious, unkind as the sea riders were unkind. Yet in that first year there was a kind of peace which dwelled in the land as the Daona kings settled their kingdoms. Battles there were, for the many Tella of Ioland would not die easily. Many small battles were fought as Ioland died. Yet when the year passed and the kings felt secured in their lands, war once again lived on the green grasses. It was the host of Crauken Biter which began the blood wars anew, For he saw the people of Amach-es living beyond the rule of the Daona, and sought to raise his prestige by subjugating them beneath his cruel banner. As the Ergodan Resturton marched from his hall, they dug up the graves they came across, humiliating the dead and forcing their spirits to wander the earth in rage. As the host crossed the wide plains which stretched to the Isle Meloch, they saw no signs of their foe, for they were warriors of a greater quality, their bodies well suited to run over the grasses of their home. Though they kept strict watch over Krauken and the Ergodan Resturten, which followed the banner of the cave bear, they remained unseen. Not until the Daona reached the home of the Amach-es did they see their foe. High were their spirits when they came there, for they discovered the Amach-es had no wall about their home and thought they would break at the first charge. Yet had the Daona known of the Amach-es, they would have feared. About the great hall and homes surrounding stood those remaining Amach-es with spears readied. The home of the Amach-es was atop a hill of many steep climbs, but these the Daona looked beyond. They saw women standing in the line with the men, and thought these to be a desperate people, that they would fight alongside their sisters, mothers, and wives. They circled the hall and began their assault on them slowly, climbing the hill such that their line remained one. A great horn was lifted, and its wretched call was that of the north, of the snows, of lands made of snow and ice where green life was rare, of groaning glaciers and breaking icebergs, of the sea, freezing and bitter. And at once the circling Daona broke into a charge against the few spears of the Amach-es. Blood ran down the hill as the waters of the summer storms flood. But this was not the blood of the Amach-es, for they knew the strength of their spears and held their faith in them. The wood never shivered or broke, nor did the shafts waver as the iron found its home. Shields the Daona had, but against these the proud warriors were well practiced, knowing full well how to knock them about with well-placed thrusts, that the spear at their side might drink. This, then, is why the people of Amach-es were so fierce in battle. They sought not glory in its cruelty. They knew the smell of blood and the cries of the dying. They could taste the metal unsheathed. They felt the iron waiting in their hands. Compared to such warriors, what hope had the warriors of Daona of victory? For they were warriors for whom war was a joy and violence, but not a living. In the first charge they were as the coming sea, but the wave which was borne from far across the sea, and thought little of the shore, found that the sands drank the wave as it came, and was left unchanged. Staggering, they fell down the hill, routed completely, and in disbelief they looked up the hill where the bitter spears remained. Their fierce holders stared down at them with fury. Many hundreds lay dead and dying beneath the spears, and the Daona saw that they had not harmed their foe. Kraukenbiter looked up at the dead and was in wonder that such people who he hated stood still. Though a dog, prone to rage, that chieftain knew he could not take the hill by charge so soon after the last. Those dying were left where they lay. Their cries filled the plain, as the living began to set their camp that they might place the hill in siege. A trench was dug that the Amach-es could not leave, and the Daona settled into waiting. They thought it not long ere their foe began to starve, and placed their hopes in victory there. Krauken walked among his men and told them that they would break their foe when they began to starve, and then the slaughter would come against those who fought against them. But in truth, for the Daona the passing days were far worse, for they had thought the raid would last but days, and brought little food with them. The siege set, the Daona began to starve. Krauken saw their lamentable position, and knew that soon his warriors would grow enraged at their starving and abandon him. And thus, to distract them from their hunger, he led them in assaults against the Amach-es. 10 times in 3 days he had them charge up the slope, and each time they were repelled by the swift spears of the Amach-es. Each time the Daona thought they could come in surprise, they were turned away, for the scouts of Amach-es need only give a word, and all the Tella came to battle. Yet with each Daona warrior who fell in battle, the food would last longer, and soon the hillside was littered with the dead, their arms and armor cluttering the slope, that each following charge was made slower as they picked their way over the dead. The Amach-es would not bury their foe. The will would not fall, yet the barking dog would not leave lest his hateful warriors turn against him, for they were near as mad as he. He began to send his warriors foraging in the fields surrounding, and often these warriors raided the farms of the wee Agla who lived to the south. Yet these were placed in the kingdom of Svoren Blackfingers, and paid to him tribute. Runners came from the wee Agla, begging their new king to defend them. Svoren came with his host, leaving but a small force to continue the siege of Tel Drim. The great number of warriors who Svoren had brought had set up a great camp for their siege. As their assaults failed, they built walls to keep themselves safe, and homes for themselves. These they named Dolbin, and Blackfingers set his hall there. Swift Blackfingers' host moved, and soon was marching upon the sieging camp. Their approach was well marked by Krauken and his host, the Ergodan Resturton, and they lifted the siege to meet this new foe. The banner of the cave bear went to meet the Leviathan, and when the hosts drew lines, the two kings went to meet between them. Svoren stood as the image of ancient Daona kings. His mail threw the light far, well maintained it was. His helm was inlaid with gold, and the horsehair crest was dyed red. A cloak lay upon his shoulders, well dyed, and sheepskin sewn, that he remained warm in winters and cool in summers. His jerkin made of fine leather. His grey beard was well woven, and reached his sword belt. Krauken Biter was haggard. His mail had many broken links, and his jerkin ill-fitting. His beard had grown long in siege, but was not well groomed. Svoren spoke first, and Krauken was made to listen. "Hail, Biter! A long year it has been since last I saw you. In that time I have come to possession of a great kingdom, with many tributaries. When I first came to this land, I was searching for glory and conquest, certain of my destiny. I found a god walking over the green grasses, and learned beneath cruel hands that they cared little for our lives. How hateful they are of our little world. This isle took my faith from me. It took my soul and shattered it into 1,000 pieces. Strange it seems to me now to come here before you to defend these people from your raiding. Begone, Biter. The people who remain of the wee Agla pay tribute to me and hold me as their master and king. The gold and silver and food and women your beasts take from them rightfully belong to me. Return these, and come no longer into the lands given to me by our pact. Else between us there shall be war, and my unspent host will roll over your weak warriors as the sea conquers the shore. Remember that the cave bear found a home on the backs of other beasts. I shall leave a great part of my host to guard the wee Agla lands, and any warrior of yours which they spot shall perish where he stands. Go, dog, and never permit me to gaze upon that slinking tail again." The mad Biter laughed in the face of the proud warrior, and at the ending of his boasts, having gnashed his teeth and spat as Svoren spoke, gave answer. "Comely are you now, Svoren Blacktongue, well dressed as the fairest maiden presented before men, her flower ready to be plucked. You have spent your summer dreaming of what man will have you, bright bird, But you shall rue your dreams, for our cruel gods have chosen the cave bear to take you. How pretty you have become, how soft you are now. Do you not feel despair when you see hungry warriors before you, we who still dream of war? You come here to tell us to bring no harm to those who fall at your feet. You have forgotten why we are here in this cruel land. They slaughtered the many chieftains of our people. There is no power to hold me back, no line drawn that I shall respect. I will burn the homes and dig up their fields as I see the need. I will take their children and throw the men to thraldom. I will tear the dead from their graves, for they deserve no rest. None shall hinder me, neither you nor the other kings. Slink away from the field, your siege is so poorly made, I doubt that the hands inside those strange walls you throw yourself against are growing weary. Do not think that you will have success against Dayona in the field. He spat at Svoren's feet and returned to his haggard host, Svoren returning to his own. Craukenbiter's host, the Ergodan Resturton, gave a mighty shout with hungry voices, clashing their arms upon their shields. Then they turned away from the field and began to return to their camp. But from Svoren's host was lifted a single horn, a lonesome call which rolled like the waves over the grasses and put a chill through the Ergodan Resturton as they left the field. At the call they turned about to see the Fellera Brechte, Svoren's host, with horror in their eyes, for they had never dreamt their fellows would come against them. Yet as they stood quivering from the horn's call and gazed across the field, the Fellera Brechte broke their line and began charging across the field. The Ergodan Resturton out of place, their line unready, their shields and swords slung over their shoulders. The charge came thundering across the field, roaring as the breaker to the shore. The Ergodan Resturton scrambled to make response. Craukenbiter barked orders to his men, that they form a line, that they charge to meet the wave, that their blades be ready and their shields high, that they flee the field. The echoing horn plagued his mind still, that he could not give proper order to his host. The Ergodan Resturton, fearsome warriors made deadly by the storm inside their minds. But dogs have no discipline, made dangerous by their bite, not their order. Thus some remained together, shields high and blades ready, as others broke into a run, rushing to the wave on their own, hoping to earn glory in battling its power. Thus divided, the dogs were swept away. Fierce though they fought, their flight took them far beyond the slopes of the Amach Es, their camp abandoned. Crauken was forced to return to his kingdom without glory, without treasure, without much of his host, for those who fell were neither recovered nor buried. Hundreds lay dead across eastern Ioland, unburied and rotting. Svoren held the field and had the dead stripped. Then he turned his host about and returned to his city at Dolbin, caring little for the Amach Es or the camp Crauken's host left behind. The Amach Es took the camp, burning what they found, for such was their contempt for their foe. The dead they found were cremated, an act disrespectful beyond all mutilations, for it refused the Dayona reunion with the earth from which they were born. What bones remained from the fire was taken and thrown into the sea where the Aya Maloch end. This, then, was the first war between the Dayona warriors, but it was not the only, for soon these violent people fell against themselves in search of some little land that they could have for blood. Svoren battled against Crauken and against Halvavar. Halvavar fought against Crauken for the good grazing lands in the north, and once came against Ragnaros. Violent people fall into violence. War became common between the Dayona hosts. Domnall was with the host when they took the western Tella. He witnessed the fall of those proud warriors. Ragnaros took his seat in Ioland and reduced those people no further. Of thralls he kept only those he had already, and those people he judged against. Swift went the word to his people, and many ships arrived in that year of peace with the eager hands of needy Daona. The land of the west was split among them by the king Ragnaros, the Eolish forced from their homes where the land was good. Powerful men were given vast lands to rule as jarls or thanes. Domnall was placed upon the farms of the king and was made to look after the sheep and collect timber. During this time he was separated from the brothers Ethelred and Eadmund, for they remained among the king's guard. The youthful Domnall worked hard at those appointed tasks which he was set to. Strong his back and powerful his limbs, and though young he did the labor of 4 men. A shepherd was he, and in the spring he led the flocks into the fields below the Isle Kelros, and hauled lumber in the summer. In the autumn he gathered the sheep from their grazing, and watched the horses. In the winter he kept the homes thatched, and watched for wolves. The other thralls from the wee Agla did not honor him. It was in the winter, in the 2nd year of the Daona conquest, when one of the jarls Ragnaros appointed to lands beneath him came to the king's farm. His name Egil Skallson. A mighty warrior was he. His eyes were green, his hair dark as ravens' wings. He stood a middling height. He was not swift, but was well built. His axe was feared in battle. His horse was white, eager and swift, but he came without attendants, which followed after jarls. Egil came to the farm and made demands of them, for he was in a great hurry. The many farmers and thralls on that farm listened to him as he spoke, and the youth Domnall was among them. Egil spoke. I am a mighty jarl, given lands here by the king Ragnaros. My blood is old, and my power mighty, and I have most urgent command. I am following well-armed bandits who come from Craukenbiter's people, for he has given permission to his people to raid as they need across the isle, even against other Daona. They fell upon my lands, burning many homes and taking for themselves a great deal of plunder. By the time I had raised my host for battle they had left. I pursued them, not knowing their full number, and when we came across them the struggle was swift and fierce. Those who had followed me were slain, for they carried but ordinary arms, and our foe was well equipped with the axes and mail of proper warriors. But well did mine fall who followed me, taking 10 of the enemy. I was wounded in the thigh during our battle, and I was forced to leave the fighting. 15 bandits still remain, and are near here, well-armed and veteran warriors. My wounds are healed well, but not yet fully, and I have no blade behind me to find victory against these bandits, and thus I come here. A number of you shall take up arms and aid me in my search for these warriors. As my blood and station given by the king, who is your master, place me in the position to take as I have need of. Yet the many farmers and thralls there would not take up arms, for they would not face battle against men well armed, and they answered him. We are not well set to give chase against warriors well knowing of battle, for we have only poor iron here, and have no mail. We run the king's farm, and the king does have need of the flocks and grain we have here. Better it is to prepare ourselves here than to go chasing after them, and if able, let them pass without blood spilling. And should they come here to take from us, then we shall be prepared against them. Winter has set in, and it is hard for us to travel far. We will not die in frozen fields where none can recover our bodies. These winters here are not as harsh as those in our own lands, but these are not the times for men to go raiding. We will not go with you, though your blood has given you so much. Egil raged, but was one man alone and wounded, and could not make them go with him. Yet here the youth Domnall found a chance to change his fortunes, for he was a strong lad of 15, and did not tire easily. He stepped forward and spoke. "I will go with you, though as a thrall I am in need of arms with which to go into battle. Give me these, and mail also, and I will face whatever foe plagues you. I am named Domnall, strong as an ox am I, and swift of limb, shunned by the Eolish ever since the fall. Why would you not take a warrior such as me, as I am not afraid of the winter, and hold no love for the people here? I fear not the reprimand of these small men, nor the retribution of their king, if you do vouchsafe my going. Come, mighty Jarl, let us away and hunt your foes." The Jarl remained on his horse, wary of the large youth before him, for he was wounded, and going alone with the youth would give chance for the thrall to slay him and escape. But as he looked on the youth, he found his need greater than his fear. He gave order that the youth be armed and given mail, and these were brought to him. The people of the farm, unwilling to go forward into battle, but would not refuse him further, and equipped Domnall for travel. Food they gave, and skins for water. An axe they gave, and a shield also. They brought a sturdy horse to carry him. Swiftly Domnall and Egil left the king's farm, and passed over the winter fields in search of the bandits' trail. Egil rode alongside Domnall, that he would keep his eye upon him, but Domnall knew not where they were journeying to, and was inclined to follow after. Thus in Egil's mind the boy was untrustworthy, and he was prepared for some sudden violence. In silence they rode to the place where Egil's band had been slain, a hollow well covered by trees. Blood stained the trees and pooled over the earth. Many dead lay unburied. Egil circled the battle, searching for the tracks, but the youth dismounted and searched the dead, separating the Eolish from the Daona, and with great speed he lifted a barrow over the dead Eolish. Egil saw this and demanded his reason. "Hold, thrall, why rise you those mounds? We have need to quickly discover the trail which they took, that we might find them before they go beyond our reach. As you pile stones over the dead, the trail becomes hidden. Remember now that I am a Jarl, a warrior of the host and trusted retainer of King Ragnaros, and can bring to you great suffering, even as I am wounded. Take to your horse once more, and find for me the trail of this foe." The youth Domnall replied to Jarl Egil, even as he buried the Eolish dead. "No son of Ioland, be they Telach or outlaw, shall ever be unburied and left for the crows and wolves. The proper burial of our dead was the first lesson which we were taught after coming to this green isle. I would not leave these Eolish sons unburied, though a blade were rested on my throat. I fear not my death, but the wrath of the Baith. Fear not that the trail shall grow cold, for the labor I now do shall not harm us in our chase, as the time spent here shall greatly appease those powerful spirits who do live on this land at the good God's permission. You have come here and conquered this land quickly, but you do not understand the laws and lawgivers who rule over it. This place is not ruled by those many cruel and capricious gods of your people. Trust me, for I know better the laws of Ioland, which will soon see us victorious." He continued to lay the stones in silence, and when the barrow was raised he leapt upon his horse and searched for the trail of the foemen, finding it quickly. The tracks were strange, for though the snow lay heavy over the ground, and the foemen were heavy with mail, axes, and plunder, their tracks were light across the ground, as though they were made from the wind. The youth found this trail, and followed it over the snows as it left the hollows, and continued toward the Isle Kelrose, the great mountains of western Ioland. Though the tracks were faint, the youth could follow them from horseback, as though they were marked by ink, and the warrior Egil marveled at the speed with which he read them. "Long have I sailed the bitter seas with raiders well armed and traders clever, and on each voyage I have stood at the dragon prow, my eyes sharper than all others with whom I have sailed, my voice always the first to cry our landing. Yet as my eyes look over the fresh snows which we thunder over, I cannot discover the trail we are following. Perhaps my eyes have come to fail me in my middle age, but I think you are either leading me to the mountains to loose me and escape the bonds placed upon you, or else the trail is clear to you alone. Is this the power of law set over Ioland, which you so carefully follow? Powerful, then, are the gods which rule here. Even as he rode and watched the trail grow fresh beneath the hoofs of his horse, the youth answered him. The Iolish have but one God. He is the good God who made all things and moves them ever to his purpose. The Baith we fear for their mastery of this land, they who have dwelled on the green isle since it was raised out of the sea for Iol. Powerful is their magic, but not more than that which belongs to the good God, and we worship them not, for this would risk the wrath of the true power. Nay, we are a people of one God and have been for many years. The Baith are beings proper to the world, and must belong to all lands which lie upon the ocean, but only here in Ioland are they known to man. I know no reason for this. I have met only two who have seen the Baith walk the land, and only one can tell me the thoughts of these strange movers. When next I see her, I must be sure to ask why they remain in Ioland, but not in the wide world. Come, the trail grows fresh before my eyes. We are gaining on them. The trail led them to the feet of the Isle Kelrose, and from there into the towering stone of the mountains themselves. The youth no longer needed the trail in the snow, for the mountain path was narrow and could lead only in one direction. Many miles they went into the Isle Kelrose, in lands where goats and eagles alone do dwell, and well covered with snow and boulders was the path that their going was much slowed. The sun was well in her setting before the sound of voices echoing against the mountain walls reached Egil and the youth Domnall. They leapt from their horses and crept quietly through the valley, their quarry resting at a turn in the path and hidden from the world below. Domnall looked to the sky, where the moon hung in a crescent. 15 there were in all, and each armed well with swords and axes. Shields banded with iron rested at their sides. Heavy mail they wore, and helms well made with the faces of terrible beasts engraved upon them. Plunder at their feet, gold, silver, and crops stolen from winter stores. Rabbits they roasted, that the smell covered the mountainsides. No songs did they sing, but boastfully they recounted their days of slaughter and the shame they brought to the Iolish. Well they did praise themselves for the pain they had made. The youth did not rise to anger, for his rage would not aid him against such numbers. Without word to Egil he returned to the horses and removed their saddles, which he hid carefully amongst the rocks, and with handfuls of snow he brushed their flanks, that they seemed cool and had not traveled far that day, taking great care to churn up the snow which bore their footprints. As Egil protested, wishing to learn his mind, the youth hit his horse on the flank such that it gave a cry which haunted the mountains. The voices of the bandits ceased at the sound, as they wondered what caused it. The youth then grabbed Egil with one hand and began climbing the stone face as the Jarl protested. Such was the strength of his body. 20 rella above the mountain path he came to a ledge where in summer past nested a large eagle, and there they rested and waited for what the bandits would do. When they came, there were 5 of them, moving in a careful line across the path, ready for some sudden violence. There they discovered the horses unbridled and began to speak among themselves about the meaning of their appearance. First spoke the leading warrior, whose helm was marked with many hunting dogs. Strange it is for horses to be so far up the mountain. Yet they are unbridled, and are not slick with sweat, and thus I think they have no riders. Yet horses do not live in these mountains, and I am left to wonder where they have come from. Indeed, when we heard the cry go up across the mountain, there were many, including you, Egrim, who thought that the cry was that of a dragon or right come for us. But horses they are, and now we are made to decide if they are good or ill omens sent to us by our dark gods. The man named Egrim spoke next, his voice rasping and weak. These horses are ill for us. Did you not hear their ghostly cry? Did you not feel your blood turn cold at its voice? This is not the sound of a living creature, but of specters and ghosts here to steal our blood. We must flee here, beat these animals to death before the dark gods which we worship come to claim their steeds and our souls with them. Then spoke another, his voice calmer, which did not waver. Do not give in to fear, warrior who is often given to slaughter, for your dark gods do not rule Ioland, not while it remains the Green Isle, not while the Baith and the good God work together by the pact made flesh and then unmade. It will be theirs forever. These are not demons or specters, but merely lost horses. Let us not worry ourselves over their presence, but return to the fire. Tomorrow we have long to go ere we return to the lands of Crauken Biter. The Daona of the Dog Helm spoke again. Glad I am that Eolish have joined our number, who know our land well. Herald, better it is that you spoke to that last wise man before his death at Crauken's hand. Come, let us speak to our fellows, that they may vote what we do with these beasts. Egrim, Herald, and the first speaker went back to the fire to begin their choosing, but two they left to corral the horses together. Here Domnall took a large stone in both hands and whispered to it, Ilulian Finnoan, dawn and dusk, sea and stone, heart and hind, river and grass. I ask you now to aid my labors. Break this stone I hold in twain. He tested his strength against the stone and found it broke as though made from a single sprig of wheat, silently becoming two, which fit in his hand comfortably. He loomed over the ledge and with both hands threw the stones with all his might at the two warriors who remained. Both struck true, crushing the helms of those men, and they fell to the ground dead, the stones tumbling into the growing darkness. Clouds drifted over the sky, and the moon continued her rise over Ioland as light faded over the sea before all the thieves returned to the horses and found their fellows dead. Here the Daona warrior with the hunting dog helm spoke first. Powerful blows are these which broke the helms of our fellows, dead as soon as they fell. The hooves of these mighty horses have struck them dead, and now I find my mood has changed. For before I found these horses to be but animals, now I see them as demons, slaying our brothers. We have voted that these beasts are not sent from our dark gods, but in the light of this I think we have need for us to vote a second time. The others agreed to this, and began to vote then for the horses' fate, many afraid of them, and voted that they slay them. As they worked their courage to slay the horses, the youth Domnall took a second stone and stood at the edge again, hurling the stone down upon them. This struck another warrior, such that he fell to the ground as a leaf cut in autumn. Nothing remained of his head. The Daona fell back in surprise, and they looked up the mountainside to see the ledge, and Domnall there standing, a dark shadow against the night. Many thought him a troll or stone-throwing giant, yet Egrim cursed and cried aloud, There stands the very figure of our dark gods. The mistletoe trickster has come here on these dark horses, and will see us all dead soon. We must climb this cliff face and wound him, that he leave this place. This is how we are left among the living. This the Daona heeded, scrambling up the rocks to reach the youth. But 4 of the warriors held back, among which was the Eolish man named Harold. The climbers came quickly at him, but could not reach the ledge before he threw another stone. Again his missile found its target, and one of the Daona was sent tumbling to the earth below. The first of the rushing Daona placed his hands upon the ledge, ready to pull himself up and begin battle, but the youth had his axe ready and swung hard at him, cutting the hand clean off and sending him writhing to the earth below, where he died after a short time, wailing at his pain. Yet as the youth slew this man, the others reached the ledge and pulled themselves over. But again they were surprised, for the dark figure they feared was not alone. The other came against them, a dark axe swinging through the night, and sunk deep in the leather of a Daona warrior, laying him low. 6 warriors stood still on the ledge, weapons ready. The battle began. The youth drove hard against them as Egil came with him to cover his flank, shields and axes. Such was his rush that he threw one from the ledge with the weight of his body, and the man went tumbling into darkness. A body lay broken on the mountain path, but the youth was then surrounded by 3 others, for he had come so far, and Egil was battling 2 behind, twice wounded by their blades. Domnall struggled against him, his shield whirling, but only a great warrior can hold his own against many foes. The youth Domnall swung his axe with such force that the blows could fell trees. The Daona stumbled, and struggling to stay beyond the reach of those strikes. Yet even as they did, they moved until they surrounded him on 3 sides. Then these warriors rushed in, blades set to violence. What warrior came at him straight on he leveled with a mighty blow, cutting clean from his shoulder to his heart. What warrior came at him from his left he caught in a sweep of his shield and threw him from his feet. What warrior came from behind him he could not stop, but with the twisting of his form as he battled, a long wound was delivered to Domnall along his side. The youth fell to the earth, a cry escaping from his lips, falling to that side unwounded that his blood did not touch the earth. The Daona of the dog helm stood over him, a blade wet with the blood from Domnall's side. Domnall watched the water of his body gathered on the blade's edge over him, watched it as it was pulled down, ready to fall to the stones and damn the isle for all time. Though wounded on that side and consumed with agony, the youth, with all the swiftness of his body, threw his hand-axe, a bolt of lightning flying true, and it split the hunting helm in twain, the warrior falling dead at his feet. As the soul was pulled heavenward for judgment, the blade it once held fell to the earth, and the blood of Ioland with it. The youth shifted his legs, sweating from the pain, and the blade fell flat upon them. Not a drop of the damning rain touched the earth. Domnall took the blade and licked it clean from pommel to tip, that no drop of his blood remained. The weight of the taboo was heavy on him. The warrior he had thrown to the earth with his shield, Egrim the Daona, regained his footing and came against the youth wounded, axe readied in his hand. Domnall lay still, for he could not find a way to patch the wound delivered to his side, so as to stand secured against the taboo. But he saw the shape of the fight and Egrim's approach. Egil had many light wounds delivered him by the warriors he faced, but was not yet defeated by them, and had paid recompense. The youth twisted again and planted his foot against the stone, steady. The long wound on his side remained away from the earth, that his blood be not spilled. Egrim came closer, as into a tighter ball the youth brought himself, though his open wound was agony. When the Daona had come just beyond the reach of his blade, preparing to strike, Domnall unwound the twisted sinew of his body, sliding across the ledge at Egrim and taking that warrior by surprise, the blade taken from the fallen foe flashing in the moonlight and cutting clean through the leg of Egrim, who fell tumbling, his cries soon falling silent. The 2 foemen remained upon the ledge, locked in battle against Egil, who tired from many wounds, for the Daona as a people lacked the Eolish stamina. Yet the youth could not stand for fear of his running blood pooling beneath the mail and jerkin and shirt, a single drop enough to damn his people. Laying beside the leg of Egram, Domnall dropped the sword he held and unstrapped his shield, taking it in his right hand, and threw it with what strength he could muster. Heavy though it was, it flew true, hovering above the wind and striking the nearest warrior in his leg, causing him to drop to his knee. Egil was bleeding from many cuts and was wearied, but knew this to be his best chance for victory, and brought a fury of blows against the warrior still standing. Heavy was the thunder from his axe as it found the target of his foe, who at the sudden flurry was forced backwards, unable to swing his weapon as he brought his shield to his defense. The warrior slowly gave ground, but forgot that he was standing upon a ledge. Only when his foot stepped back into nothing did he realize his error, and he fell down to the mountain path, dead in the fall. Egil turned to the warrior wounded by Domnall's shield, who struggled to stand to face his foe, his leg badly wounded from the blow. This man Egil slew with his axe as he walked by him. No mercy did he give to his foes. Egil knelt beside the wounded youth, and seeing the wound began to treat him. But the youth told him to wait, speaking with labored breath. "Wait, warrior victorious, do not cut my clothes from me yet, for to do so is to lay a powerful curse upon us. The living power which does rule this land still has laid taboo upon me, and terrible is the doom which weighs over me. To do so is to bring your life to her notice, and to her wrath. It is best instead to take me to the fire about which the bandits were gathered, to use it to burn away the blood and burn closed this wound. Tell me, are those warriors who waited beneath the ledge still standing there?" Egil went to the ledge, but found that the warriors who had stood there, including Harold, had gone, the horses also. Only the dead remained in the mountain pass. The battle over, Egil agreed to aid Domnall as he asked, for warriors true do not abandon their fellows in victory, and the youth had shown himself to be greater in battle than any Egil had fought beside. Down the mountainside he climbed, and cautiously he advanced to the fire where the bandits were, ready for the remaining warriors to spring out at him. But they did not come, and the roaring fire was without the plunder which the bandits shared amongst themselves. Egil took no time to grab 2 logs and return to Domnall, scrambling up the mountainside with both logs held in one hand. He returned to find the youth laying at the body of Egram, having cut from the body the shirt, and with the greatest care laid himself upon it. Egil set his axe blade on the merry flame, and with great care removed the mail which Domnall wore. Then, taking a long knife to cut free the jerkin and shirt soaked in blood. The wound to the youth was long and bloody. Red rivers ran down his bare back, ruin pulling them down to the earth. Egil rolled the jerkin and shirt such that the blood would not touch the earth, and seized his axe. He lay quickly the hot head against the wound. The youth howled in pain with a bellow that has echoed off the walls of the Isle Kelrose ever since. But he did not thrash as the blade closed his wounds, that the blood not fly from his back. The wound thus closed, the blood on his back Egil carefully cleaned, and together they climbed down the mountainside, the bloodied rags held carefully in Egil's hand, and they went to the fire where Egil burned the clothes. Snow began to fall in a silent veil over the narrow mountain pass. Darkness lay heavy on the stone. Sitting about the fire, the weary victors watched the world fall silent, separated from all life by the wall set about them. The fire began to weaken, but they had naught to feed it with, and could only watch it die as night drew on. The youth was first to break this silence, speaking in but a whisper. "This life saved by friendly blade, for had you not come to my aid and stopped my bleeding, then I surely would number among the dead who now call these mountains the place of their eternal rest. Worse still, I would lay unburied. Without a barrow set above, my spirit would be forced to walk these lonely mountains until the good God judges his work and all is remade. With this labor today, I hope you see yourself as avenged and your grievances redressed. My body was made strong, but after such a battle I feel myself grow weak. The call of sleep overpowers me. Victory seems so tiring, nor does it seem to be final, for I see many more such battles in my future ere final victory is assured. I think now it is best to sleep, and perhaps I shall not wake. If I do perish from the cold this night, take my body back and have the thralls raise a mound over me, that I do not walk this isle restless. Egil listened closely as he spoke, and when the youth was finished he gave reply. My own people, I have long thought gave too much time in fearing the wrath of our dark gods, or the demons and trolls which they have bred in our home. But here I find that the Iolish are just as fearful as we. How strange for a people so different to mine. I will not permit you to die. Had I known the conditions you felt yourself in, I would have stripped the dead clean and given their clothes to keep you warm, or else burned them in the fire. A warrior such as yourself is to be given much meed. I have only seen berserkers battle with the strength you have. You have many scars, and I do not doubt that you have seen many battles, though you are still young. I have no doubt that you will see many more before you die. Indeed, our labor here is not yet done. For those 4 warriors gone beyond the reach of justice, taking with them that which does not belong to them, our horses also, we will find them and give to them the proper justice of the blade. Yet why care you for these spirits? Why know you so much of them? You are a young man in body and in mind, and should not know the fear which leads men to this smallness. Why do you place your faith in these Baith, who you say have made a pact with your God? Which of these powers delivered us here through the light trail over the snows, which gave us victory in this battle? Which is the true power here? Let us give thanks to that power which has delivered us, and forget that from which we received nothing. This question brought response from the weary youth, who had no doubt in his mind. When after long travel you come to search for lodging to be out of the rain, and discover a grand hall, and, going to that hall, you meet its master, and beg him hospitality for the night. He allows you to stay, to eat his food and warm yourself at his hearth, but he tells you that there are no beds, that you must sleep among the dogs. Yet you are not quite abandoned to that lonely place, for one of his retainers comes to you and offers to share their bed with you, that you might sleep not as a thrall, but as a free-born man might. And the night passes, and you are warm and safe. Answer me this, sea rider. To which are you best disposed? Can you say that neither deserves thanks for what they have done for you? Nay, both have right to your praise. The one has done more by bringing you to his hall and giving you food. One is lesser than the other, and dwells in the hall same as you, but they are one of his retainers, and belong by some pact to he who owns the hall. I do not understand this pact, though I know one was made. How else could they live in peace together? Egil answered thoughtfully. Well spoken. I too think that he who owns the hall must be given homage, but I would not claim he who would offer me his own bed, that I not lay in discomfort and dishonor, go unthanked. I have seen you do great things this day, and if that be the guidance of the strange Baith, or of your good God, then I have seen a power unlike that which belongs to the dark gods of my cold home. You tracked footprints faded against the snow while you rode at a full gallop. You faced 9 men and saw victory. We will pass through these mountains on the trail of those 4 warriors who took our horses, and we will find victory against them, backed by both powers which guard this land. Stay by the fire. I will go and strip the dead, bring their clothes to you that you stay warm this night. You will not pass beyond the borders of this world, not for many years to come. Egil left quickly for the pass where the dead lay beneath the snow, as the youth lay right at the edge of the dying fire, shivering from the cold, pale from his wound. The snow began to fall harder. The fire's death came closer, wavering on the logs, scurrying into the cracks in the wood to hide as embers. And the snow melted over Domnall and ran over him, freezing as it ran. He lay shivering, eyes closed in fervent prayer that he might live one day further for the sake of his people. As he prayed so desperately for each breath of his lungs and beat of his heart, the fire died, and he was left in perfect darkness, the snow falling heavy still. It began to build around him, gently covering him in a blanket that would be his death. A sudden, he felt warmth through his body entire, as though he lay beneath the summer sun, his muscles unworked and warm, relaxed and ready for some labor. He felt sleep come on and felt his body yearning for rest, but that part of his mind which remembered the pain stood startled before the sleeping wave rolling towards him, ready to drown him. Alert, he opened his eyes and roused himself, bolting upright before the remains of the fire. Around him the mountains and snow burned with a white light, as though the sun in the full power of noon hung above him, and not the dark clouds laden with snow. Down from the heart of the Isle Kelrose came walking a figure in white, purer than the snow itself. Dawn Flower, Ilulian Finnewen, came to him. Her feet glided over the snow without leaving a track. Her dress washed over the snow, leaving no trace behind, and though the snow fell still, not a flake lay on her skin. She stood over the youth and listened as he whispered, "Daughter of the brightness, I have done as you commanded of me, and made sure that no blood of Ioland fell to the earth. Please tell me that you have not come here for my failure, that a drop of my blood has let fall the doom set against us. Ilulian, high Telach of our people, this is the storm which your father did fear, the storm which is set to wash away our people. This is the charge which was set to your blood. This is your battle. Do not abandon us. Do not leave this battle to those not blessed with your power. I beg of you, please do not tell me I have broken taboo. I beg you not to leave this battle. Spare these people who are yours. Spare us. Spare us. Forgive me should I break our pact, but spare us for all that is good in this isle." Ilulian stood over him and wept, her voice a bare whisper for his ears only. "Warrior of Aeolish blood, I have not come here to harm you or your people. You fought desperate battle to its bitter ending, and when wounded fought such that not one drop of Aeolish blood touched the earth. Your taboos remain unbroken. These are from a deep law, a pact made that some may live still at the cost of one. Laws which I am bound by and set to judge. Remember always these taboos, else succor shall not come to Ioland. I have not come here to deliver some judgment, but rather to do my duty to guard the faithful Aeolish in their pursuit of just ends. On you are set many taboos which bind you on your quest, taboos which bind you to me, that you must follow my word if you desire me to take that curse given to my father, and while you keep your faith, I shall keep mine, and take from the hands of men that which they cannot hold safely. Yet as you are bound to me, I am bound to you, he who lives beneath my taboo. And as you search for the ring of Dainthar Dween through all Ioland so tied, I am brought back to this land to watch over you, and the pain that dwells still in my heart is not so sharp, nor the fog of my mind so thick. I can see past the dead which I chose to remember, even above myself, into the wide world waking before me. I have come here to heal the wounds which you have so faithfully kept from the earth, to ensure that you will not die this night for your faith in me." A mighty oak burst from the stone rising swiftly above the snow. standing 10 rella tall, its leaves in full bloom. Then a mighty gust of wind, which the youth did not feel, broke the tree into well-ordered logs. A fire sprung from the heart of this pile, and soon danced happily over it, melting away the snow which had covered the pass. Its warmth he felt deep in his bones, winter driven far from him. Behind him sprung a great red-yellow dawn-flower, rising swiftly as though it grew in a field in midsummer. In full bloom, it was weighed by its petals, sagging gently until it touched the wound, and immediately skin grew anew over it, and the burnt blood and charred skin vanished. No longer was he in pain. Relief washed over him, and he felt himself drifting off into calm sleep, Ilulian Finnewan standing above him as he closed his eyes, knowing without a doubt that he would be opening them again. As he slept, he felt himself dream of Ilulian, her golden hair flying throughout the green meadows, of forests burning, of great hosts charging each other in battles beyond what he had yet seen, of a seabird falling before the rock of Scarmeline. Then his dream changed, and he found before his eyes a thin, angular man, his lips pursed, his hair gray, his cloak brown, and this man spoke to him. In distant lands strange to you I was born, in a world of wars as petty kings of many faiths battled their brothers and spilled blood in waves for clods of land over which to raise their banner. To a noble warrior house was I born, and in the martial arts I was trained, and in many battles I fought, and killed, and won. Yet never did this make me a good man or a wise man. A proud warrior was I, long my lance, thick my armor, bright my sword, magnificent the horse on which I rode. The wars about us became bloodier, and we rode so often to face battle that my horse grew weary of the riding. My sword was tarnished with blood, long notches formed in its iron. My armor rent and bore the marks of the blacksmith's work in many places. My lance broke in so many charges, and those I took to replace them shattered also. My great pride in the place given to me by my God turned to revulsion at the work I wrought in his creation. I looked at the blood which belonged to dead men on my hands, and my body shook from the sight. My stomach churned. I wept. For what good power would command me to such acts? And I came to realize my place and power were not the work of the good God, but of the fiend. I left my duty, I left my house, I left my faith as I understood it, and began the path of true light. I came to the rock, known to the people of this land as Scarmeline, and there tested myself. In the winter waters of the bay I would kneel and pray, eating nothing but what I grew myself. In the summer months I would sit before the great sea-mount, my eyes locked on its stone face, as though it was the face of the Almighty itself, seeing not the church which was built at its base, but the monolith built by his hand. In its face I saw my life entire, watching every moment, every mistake, every violence. Yet though those acts were evil, they no longer kept chains on my soul. I was permitted, as all men are permitted, to change by the light of the good God's creation. I renounced those vile deeds and lived my life ever after in penance. For this I am known as Alvarez the Penitent. Remember this, as before you stand many more battles, more blood spilt before the liberation of your people. You will have to repent your doings, else you will remain a beast. Remember always the God of your people. The youth awoke as the dawn began falling over the snow and stones of Isle Kelrose, discovering himself beneath many bloodied rags which the bandits had brought with them. His body was not tired, nor did his wound bother him. The fire roared along happily, though it was many hours since it was lit. Egil was cooking breakfast upon the flames. The smell of venison reached the youth. He rose slowly from beneath the rags, Egil turning in surprise. As the youth stood by his own strength, a grin broke over Egil's face, and he began his hearty laugh. The many light wounds he had taken seemed well healed, though the lines remained. Egil spoke. He rises, conquering arm of the great Eolish people. I will say freely that I wondered if I should ever see you wake. Such was your wound. Well has it healed, and mine also. The cold mountain air of Ioland is good for the healing of wounds. I returned with many rags to warm you, battling against the increasing snowfall, only to find you resting peacefully beside a fire so large that an entire tree might have fed it. Where did you find enough wood to keep this blaze going through the night? I have not placed any wood on the fire since my return, and yet it roars merrily on. I found a hart dead among the stones this morning, dead less than 2 days, and kept from rotting by the snows. I have prepared it, a hearty breakfast before we cross these mountains in search of the bandits which still live. No man can steal and live happily. Death shall soon fall upon them. Eat, and let us begin our hunting. The youth Domnall dressed from among the clothes he slept under, donned mail, readied his shield and axe, and stood above Egil, ready for leaving. His muscles were eager for action. He spoke to Egil. Thank you for your labor. You have kept me from seeing over the horizon which no man can return from. I owe you a life debt, and will not soon forget it. I thank you also for the meal you offer me, but I cannot join you in the eating of it. Such was my wound that the thought of food leaves my stomach churning. Water is all I need before setting off to our battle. When the chase is over, I will eat, but not before then. The fire roars on through the night because the good God and the Baith have decreed our task a righteous one, and we shall see it finished by their aid. Gather your breakfast and eat as we go. The mountains shall be challenging to cross in winter. The chase continues. He began walking up the mountain paths as Egil scrambled to gather his things. No trail remained in the snows of their quarry's path, but Domnall followed his own feet, trusting that they knew the proper way to cross the mountains. Egil walked carefully behind him, eating slowly as they scrambled through the mountains. Through twists and climbs they went. The wind howled and the frost bit at them. Egil was well warmed by the meal he ate, but the youth felt his stomach groaning. The sun grew and fell from the sky. All about them was the mountain peaks, labyrinthine. Always after the youth was Egil, for he had learned that a power dwelt in that land, which spoke only to the children of that soil, and he was contented to speak of his travels, of his wars, of the distant shores of the Daona. Much had he seen of the world, from the frozen oceans to the warm sea where great kingdoms lay, and where he sailed he fought, and won always, for few knew how to battle in the sea as the Daona. Fruits of a great variety he could describe, for he had eaten the crops of 20 lands. Women from across the known world he had known. Legends of him were carried across the waves, and his black axe was well known wherever the water crashes upon the shore. Long he spoke of himself, not from arrogance, but rather a desire to keep his mind sharp and the numbing cold at bay. The youth spoke little, thinking still on Ilulian Finnewan and the good monk Alvarez. Their words filled his ears that those of Egil were swiftly forgotten. Night fell. No fire to warm them, they huddled close, the wind biting them, the echoes of the youth's cries haunting their ears. Little did Egil sleep that night, unable to find comforting rest, but Domnall could rest, knowing that he would have need for all his strength. Dawn broke and the chase continued, the youth following after his feet and Egil going after. Carefully he ate from the rations remaining. Again the youth ate not the venison, again feigning illness that he not consume that hollowed flesh. But this day his strength was not enough to tame his stomach, and as the day wore on he grew more needy of food, knowing that a single morsel from the heart Egil held would let fly that doom which weighed over them. He ate the snow to sate himself, But this was nothing but brief relief. No scrub which grows in the high climes was suitable for eating. The day stretched on, the snow clung to him, the sun shone too bright off the whiteness, making all the world a pain to his eyes. The cold bit at the wound in his back, a dull ache consumed him. No relief came to him as the sun fell from the sky, and the more he walked, the more pain and rage built in him, until he was a towering wound struggling against the mountains. For it seemed that the Isle Kelrows were set against them, that each step they took brought them no closer to discovering their prey. Night fell over them, and settling down from the howling winds, Egil again offered the rations he had to the youth. Domnall looked on the venison, his stomach begging to have it. The scent of the cold meat was intoxicating as heady mead, but Domnall grabbed tight to his legs and turned away, asking that Egil eat in his place. He closed his eyes and begged that sleep might come to him quickly. He rested in a haze, walking and sleeping in fits and starts as his hunger and the cold gnawed at him even in his dreams. In such misery he passed the night, the scent of meat invading his dreams and stirring him to madness. The want was too much. A primal need grew in him, and even in his sleep he became aware that food lay near him. Domnall woke with sudden fury, his hands grabbing what lay before him without pause to wonder at what it was. It was cold and bloody, hard in his mouth, but it was meat, and his stomach roared with delight as some distant part of his mind wept for the weakness of his body and the doom sure to fall. Only when the torturing scent of the meat no longer filled the cold air and his stomach fell silent did the youth look about. It was dark, the moon still in her high place. The light of her waxing power showed the snow about him was churned and bloody. The remains of a mountain goat lay about him, the prize cuts removed and laid cleanly in the snow. Egil sat nearby, a soft smile on his lips, and he said to the youth, "You are taller than most, more powerful in strength than nearly every man, wise and well skilled. In battle you are fierce, yet still you are mortal man, and none can go 2 days without food, more so in these dangerous climes. We have much work ahead of us in these long days coming, and you will have need of every ounce of your power. Eat, sleep, the chase shall continue through these mountains and into the lands beyond, I fear." Speaking no further, Egil continued to butcher the goat, and the youth, blood dripping from his chin, fell calmly into sleep and did not turn. He awoke well rested, the goat butchered entirely, and Egil stood a ways from him, watching the sun rise over the mountains. The youth broke his fast, gathered the remaining meat, and began the chase anew. Egil followed after, telling such tales as are popular with sailors, and both he and the youth would laugh at their conclusion. The day's going seemed not so challenging as those previous. They walked in the broad valleys between the peaks and followed the twisting paths which snaked between them, or else climbed narrow shoulders when they could find no easy pass through. The going was treacherous, but it weighed not on Domnall's mind, and he was always alert to the danger. It seemed to him that he no longer followed the whim of his feet, but that they together were agreed on the direction to go. As the sun was in her falling, and the barest rumor of night reached them, a shadow of foreboding fell upon him, as though the corner of his eye found darkness which leaked into his mind, as though the shadows were too dark and were not hiding from the sun. Dread grew on his mind. His gait became shorter, his feet fearing to continue their path. Egil saw this change and wondered why they slowed, but the youth could give no answer. The warrior prepared his axe, ready for some sudden terror to come upon them, for he had learned the youth knew proper the dangers of the island. Together they went slowly, the tallest peak of the Isle Kelrose growing before them. Light was fading as they climbed the final slope to that tallest stone, the youth's heart racing furiously in his chest, blood thundering in his ears, fear crying out not to continue. The mountain fell down in two great shoulders, between them a sluggish river, choked by timbers and a dark ichor. Strewn all about were the bones of many dead. Dressed as the Aeolish were they, the thick black ichor clung to most of the dead. Yet there were a small number untainted by the darkness. Indeed, the ichor covered much of the mountainside, thrown to all corners by some great force, and clinging there still, the snows covering only those places where the ichor was not. In some pools of the ichor lay the remains of carrion birds, come to feast, but caught by the seeping darkness. There were arrows in these. Egil spoke, awed. What is this place of death and ruin, so marked by this leeching ichor? I have sailed over many seas, see the sun set green, fire burn from the masts of my ship. I have seen where the whales go to die. I've seen the sea turn to ice entire. This, before me, is nothing but evil sorcery. Did the witches of Ioland do this magic and bring ruin to so many by the choking ichor? Death still lives here. I desire in my very bones to leave this place swiftly. We can follow the poisoned river down into the lands beyond. There we can wash the stench of death from us. The youth Domnall looked over the dead, weeping slow tears, and gave reply haltingly. I know what sadness came here. The story is well known to the Aeolish. There was walking darkness, ravenously searching for that which it thought belonged to it. Here it was held for a time by the power of a song. To linger here would be a danger. Cursed ichor is enough to hold us and bleed from us our souls. Yet I cannot leave this place until I have buried those noble sons who are consigned to dwell here until they are buried properly. Wait for me on the other slope. I will not be long. Egil did not go to the slope, but instead began to prepare those dead untainted for burial in Aeolish fashion, and when the youth asked him why he aided him, he answered, There is a power which dwells on this isle, perhaps even several. I have seen the wonders they have wrought, beyond the skill of the witches of my home, or even the power of the dark gods which rule our cold shores. If those power true which rule Ioland demand of you that clean Aeolish sons be buried in barrows in return for boons to stand tall, then I shall do them, that I might be so blessed. Make no protest, my mind is set. Thus the pair began to bury the long-dead members of the wee Iolandar, that their rest be finally assured. Egil began gathering stones for the cairn, careful to take only those which were unmarked by the ichor, and stepped carefully around that it not harm him. As he prepared, the youth gathered the dead, taking their weapons, that they may be given such honors as befit great warriors. He went slowly, that each bone be not left behind. In the very joint of the mountain he found two dead, one in the other's arms still remaining. A proud long spear lay beside them. These the youth bore with the utmost glory. Together, Domnall and Egil raised the cairns over the dead, giving each his separate place, a line set along the river bank, with the two captains placed together in the chief place nearest the mountain. He then took the spear untarnished and cleared the stream of the choking timbers and ichor as best he could, that the water flowed clean down into Ioland beyond. Ichor clung to the spear tip, and Domnall could not dislodge it. He resolved instead to use it as his own. Their task done, They left that place of high sorrow and followed the clean river out of the Isle Kelros. But they did not get far from the mountain peak, walking through narrow passes, when danger fell upon them. An arrow loosed from among the rocks came straight at the youth, cold iron flying true for his throat, his death assured, had not he been so swift in raising his shield against the blow. The arrow hit the target. The arrowhead broke clean through the wood. Domnall and Egil went to battle, drawing their axes and rushing toward their sudden foe. But when they reached that place where the warrior must surely have loosed from, they found nothing. The snow churned, but with no clear trail leading from it. The youth searched with all his skill, but was left confused, as though his foe could fly. From the rocks and over the wind came a voice, taunting. Through the poisoned heart have come poisoned warriors, foolish for wandering through that dark sea of death. After their fellows they follow, but why those warriors have abandoned them I can see clearly. One walks as a duck, his feet turned out to find his footing, unsure of his next step. It is best that he return to the water. The other lumbers over land as the boar, witless and following only his nose. Let him rut elsewhere. An arrow came whistling through the wind, and again Domnall lifted his shield. Again the head broke through the shield. Narrowly did it miss his arm. Egil ran, searching for the arrow's master, as Domnall climbed the slopes surrounding to spy the archer. Yet as the youth stood on the mountainside, he could see only Egil turn in confusion. Again came the voice. Climb, climb, warriors of darkness, search for me among the stones. I have lived here long in desperate battle against the darkness. I know how to hide among these stones. The walking wound lay here a year before waking again. I could not stop its leaving. But from that time I have slain any beast which walks through the mountain's heart, terribly stained with ichor. These warriors are no different. I can hit the eye of a crow with my faithful arrow, ensuring that the darkness spread no further. You shall not pass beyond these mountains. The youth went to Egil, for it was better to stand together against the bolts than to wander about the mountainside looking for their foe. He searched where Egil stood, again finding the snow churned, but no tracks led from it. Confused, he knelt and whispered as Egil listened closely. Ilulian Finnoan, snow and steam, sea and sky, root and branch, cot and barrow, dawn and day, dusk and dark. Spare us the missiles of our sudden assailant, Eolish blood same as mine. I will not harm them, but I cannot save Ioland with an arrow in me. He stood tall, shield readied, and just then a third bolt came flying at them, but this one loosed at Egil. The youth rushed in front of him, and for the third time caught the dart with his shield. Here he saw at last the archer standing among the rocks, clothed in white and grey garments which disguised them. Domnall rushed his foe, moving with certainty over the mountains, his axe put away and his shield raised only to guard himself. Quickly he covered the distance. A fourth arrow loosed as he ran, bore through the shield. Such was the power of the archer. The youth came against the archer, who with speed dropped their bow and pulled forth a long dagger, which went slashing for his throat. The youth did not slow as he charged down his foe, ducking beneath the blade and knocking them over with his full weight, but carefully that they hit the snow and not the stones, lest the blood of their body touch Ioland. Egil had run after, and seeing the youth bowl over the archer gave a great shout of victory. The youth had pinned their attacker, and Egil stood above gloating, his axe readied. Here at last the trouble is ended, our foe apprehended, and the bowstrings silenced. Tell us, villain, why you loosed at us, and perhaps we will be moved to mercy, else my axe shall fall upon you with all due swiftness. The mocking voice lost not its sting, though its owner was pinned, and swift came the reply. Boars and ducks must not think themselves clever for finding the hunter, not wise for throwing her down. Animals they are, and animals they remain, though they from time to time toss the true-born blood of Ioland. Another will come for them. You have come through the heart of the Isle Kelrose. You have walked through the sea of dark ichor which coats every stone in that once peaceful place. I permit not a single living creature to pass through that place, not bird, not boar, not beast. That darkness remains and will remain until that day when the world is remade. To have come through it is to be marked by it. To go from here is to spread sickness into Ioland beyond, a sickness which was entombed by proper Aeolish magic. To walk from this place is to allow the ichor which so stained the souls of our forefathers chance again to poison us. I will not permit this. I will slay you before you have the chance to spread the disease. Thus the archer spoke, and the youth was softened against them. For it seemed to him that this was a righteous task, for all Ioland feared still the walking wound named the hunter, remembering the death which he led them to. He let the archer free, and gave his solemn word, speaking without malice in his voice. No worry should you have that we have touched the darkness, for the Aeolish blood within me recoils at the ichor. We have passed through the mountain's heart in pursuit of bandits, with much wealth stolen from Ioland's suffering. They have taken our horses also. We are following the path laid before us by fate. My feet know it, though I do not. Through the heart of the Isle Kelrose we went, careful not to step upon the ichor which lays heavy over the ground, a thing most vile, but rather stepped carefully around it, touching only those dead which were unmarked by the filth, and giving them proper burial that their spirit no longer roam the mountain restless. From that place I have taken only a spear marked by the ichor, as I used its blade to clear the stream which flows from the mountain heart, allowing it to run free forevermore. I have the spear, but as the guardian of this sad peak, you have right to command me to return it to that blasted land. Yet let us go on living, for great is our task. The archer removed the covering from about her head and the gloves she wore to hide her, and looked both Domnall and Egil over, checking that the ichor had truly not touched them. Her hair was dark as the feathers of the crows she slew, her eyes small and distrustful, her arms made strong by the bow she wielded. She spoke to them. My eyes are made strong by the mountain air, and up close I see no darkness leaching from you. A special mark I see set upon the large one, a flower set on his soul, placed there by the Aeolish power which healed the wound. Glad I am that I did not harm you, for she has made a bargain with fate about you, and I will not challenge it. Of the spear, I cannot have it leaving the Isle Kelrose, as a single drop will return the filth to our land, returning that darkness to our people. Place the spear back on the mountain peak, and follow your feet again. Those you pursue have not come this way. You are being led upon a shorter path, for this is where the flower desires you to be. She finished, and the youth turned immediately and began running up the mountain, back to the home of the Iolandar, and the spear he placed with its haft in the ground, that the ichor on the blade touched not the soil. While he was gone, the warrior Egil stowed his axe and spoke to the woman. A powerful warrior are you, lady of the mountains, who can loose bolts at such speed to break shields. Egil am I, warrior from beyond the shores of this green isle, and I have seen where the sun rises and where it sets. I have seen where the sea burns hot and where it is frozen solid. Tell me your name and story, that I might add you to the wonders I have seen. For this island holds many wonders to see, and surely you count among them. She eyed him warily still, but began to speak all the same in her quiet manner. I have seen where the sun rises and where the sun sets, and I have never been beyond the mountains of my home. It rises over the sea and sets there too. I have seen a feast beyond all joy. I have seen walking darkness. I have seen the death of a people. I have lived in the mountains and watched families of eagles rise. Sorleith is the name given me by a people long since dead, the sound of my name now but a memory of their faces. Now I am known to you. Go celebrate yourself in the wide green lands beyond, and leave me here to my guard. No more word would she say, though the warrior Egil tried to continue speaking with her. She gathered her belongings and left, swiftly blending away among the snow and stones. No trail was left of her going. The youth returned, running still but not wearied, and called to Egil, eager to continue the hunt. Egil came slowly, looking back to the mountains as they went into the wide lands beyond. The river they walked beside ran clear, and they followed it as it joined further streams and became a rushing torrent. They passed the foothills into the lands which once belonged to the Unsalal, but were then part of the kingdom of Halvavar Brightstone. There, where the lands were green, they stopped to rest, for they had come far and quickly, and were not without wounds for their efforts. The youth prepared to bathe in the river, to clean all the grime from their chase, and prepare for that part which remained, when he saw their horses grazing in the field opposite. They looked ragged and thin, and even far away Domnall could see the rope marks where the thieves had laid the bags across their backs. The youth crossed the river swiftly, running to the horses, which did not run from him but rather to him, remembering him as a friend. Not far from the horses, the 4 warriors from the mountains sat together. Spoils lay about them. Domnall remained unseen among the horses, but could not shout for Egil without alerting them and beginning battle. He did not know for certain, but thought that these warriors who had fled from the mountain battle were of Eolish blood. The warrior herald was, and the others belonging to the same stock, else they would have joined the fighting. Battle could not be risked against Eolish blood. The youth could not subdue them as they swung their blades at him. Not knowing how to take them, the youth remained among the horses, careful always to remain in their shadow or clinging to their side. An hour passed still he remained with the horses, and he watched the thieves carefully as they rested. They were tired, laid low from their passing over the mountains, ragged as their horses, and not once did they look over to their animals. The youth backed slowly from the horses, back to the river and safety. Yet as he went the horses followed after, thinking him friend, straying from the pasture they grazed. The warriors saw this wandering, but not before Domnall reached the river. A single thief rose from the camp and made his way to the horses, not seeing the youth among them. The horses were at the edge of the water, and the youth, seeing the approach of the thief, held his breath and slept beneath the water, holding 2 great stones to keep him under. Soon he heard the cries of the horses, who fought against their captor. This warrior quickly gave up trying to lead the horses back and stepped into the river to frighten them away from the water. He stepped between the youth's legs, and this was when the blow was struck. The youth rose swiftly, seizing the thief with both hands and pulling him clean off his feet. No sound could the man give. He was swallowed by the river in a heartbeat, the youth holding him down as he thrashed, steadily feeling him grow weak in his hands. Soon the battle was ended. All life left the thief. Domnall rose from the river and let the body float free in the current. He then watched his foes, who were only then looking to see if their companion was successful. They could not see him, the horses halfway across the water, and the 3 of them leapt to their feet, blades drawn. The youth was still well hidden in the shadow of the horses and by the tumbling water of the river. And so he kept himself low in the water until they were a throw away from the river, diving down again in the cold water and holding on to the stones which lay there, that he did not come up early. He heard through the water their feet entering the river as they sought the horses, and heard muffled their talk as they called for their fellow. The youth Domnall waited until he felt 2 feet come near him, and he burst from the water as he had before, seeking to quickly drown the warrior in his reach. Yet he had miscounted, for it was not 2 feet but 2 pairs. 2 of the thieves stood near him, trying to take the horses back to their camp. No choice he had but to take both together. He seized them by their collars and wrenched them beneath the water. Both he pulled under before they could react. They thrashed in the water, violently fighting for their lives, but they could not dislodge his hands. Their fellow heard the thrashing and gave a great shout, frightening the horses. This was the Eolish warrior Harold, and he began to push against the beasts he had so mistreated in order to save his fellows from the river creature. But the churning, violent river and Harold's shouts only frightened further the horses. They reared on their hind legs, and down fell a mighty kick to the standing thief, who fell at the blow. Soon the 2 who Domnall had held so tightly were floating down the river, their blood unspilt. He took Harold to the bank of the river and laid him there. Blood ran freely from Harold's shattered nose as the horses finished their crossing. It was at that time that Egil noticed that Domnall was gone and began to call for him, and weary came the youth's reply. The Jarl came running, and seeing the aftermath of battle he gave a great shout, remorseful that he had not drawn his blade for the fighting. Egil seized roughly the wounded thief, shaking him with spite in his movements as the youth knelt in the water, resting until the groaning Harold awoke, murmuring as he became aware of his senses. Egil began to put questions to him, eager to return, knowing full well the actions of the raiders. "The chase is ended, brigand. You now lay looking at the gates of death, and soon, very soon, you shall know what it is to pass through them, black iron and rot. Yet before I send you to that place, I will learn your actions and their reasons. Never again shall any raid the lands of the king Ragnaros. Where come you from, and who sent you here? Why do you raid good Daona's sons, thieving that which does not belong to you? In the cold lands of my home you would be brought before the thing, that men of worth and skill would judge you, and assuredly find you guilty, and have you outlawed. Have you a master, and has he a name? What path did you take into the lands of King Ragnaros, and what path did you take through the mountains? How many good souls did you slay, and how much gold and silver did you take from the rightful owner? Answer, and your passing need not be far off." Harold laughed as he looked down the blade, then answered each question gladly. "How strange it is to be called thief in my own home, outlawed for holding that which belongs to my blood. I am properly of the wee Arden, born when we were still a free people and unused to the yoke now set upon my neck. Churlish it is for you to name me a thief when you come from a people who raid and thieve across all waters. How can I steal from robbers and be named villain? Yet I do serve a villain, Craucan Biter, who has sent forth many bands to steal what they can and return with this plunder, that he might use it to further his wars. For he hates beyond reason the 3 kings who have taken lands here, more than he ever hated my blood. And though he harms my people for his pleasure, I do raid for him, for he sees as no other does in Ioland. For all his madness, there is some shrewdness to him. He sees with some foresight that Svoren, the king in the south, grows stronger with every passing day, and soon he will make war on all lands, taking as his possession Ioland entire. Thus we raided and slew both Daona and Eolish, who refused to give their works to us. This is the account I give you for our works. Those foolish Daona warriors who went with us were slain by the pair of you, for they could not see what is plain to me, though no great wisdom do I possess. Your fellow is marked by a special fate, and guided by a power true to this land. He will drive your people from Ioland, and if you wish to keep what you have stolen, you best slay him now. Dead came tumbling the Daona from atop that mountain, and those Iolish who stood still thought it best to flee with the treasure and begin a warband to drive you from here. Go, fling me through the gate, but the passing of time itself shall see us victorious, should this one stay true to his oath and not stumble before the power of the boon. Domnall rose from the waters, tore clean a length of cloth from his shirt, and cleaned the blood which ran from Harold's broken nose. He then put forth his questions to the wounded thief, his brow furrowed as he sought to understand that which had troubled him in the long chase. Warrior who aids the enemy and wounds his friends, I heard you speak as I lay hidden on the ledge in the mountain pass, and you spoke of a pact made between the good God and the Baith. You spoke with some knowledge that the pact was made flesh and then unmade. Tell me all that you know. Tell me that the blood you spilt for baseless treasure be not all which you are judged on. I must know. The warrior beneath him nodded his head. Slowly and in great pain, he began to answer. He was the last of the wise men living among the wee Arden, a good man who helped where he could. In skill he was less than the famed wise man of Ioland, but he was a proper wise man all the same. Craukenbiter slew what wise men and monks remained in his kingdom, and this one last. Yet as he was led to his death, he fell to the earth and saw the true order of our land. The church of the good God has come to this land, and where it goes it brings his presence. His eye now watches over this land. No more need is there for the Baith. In all the world the Baith have vanished before the eye of the Lord, but here they remain, for the Baith of Ioland have had long to prepare. They took the blood which was theirs, and yet separate, led it beneath the earth, and there, hidden from the sun, made the pact, the blood now deathless, and thus no longer made of man. Deathless, trapped in time, weeping, faithful to the good God, but led astray by the Baith. The Baith will live as the blood lives. They shall never leave this place until the world is broken. But the good God reigns here, and they must live in the shadows. This is the pact, the law which rules Ioland, and the blood is sentenced to stand guard over the pact, to see that one lives and the other rules. We live in a broken land, bound by death and betrayal. He that spoke wept, and he that listened wept. The pain which he remembered on her face was too much, and the rage which welled from his heart so great. The youth seized Harold and drowned him in the river, weeping as he did. The thief and slayer of poor Iolish did not fight, but welcomed death as it swooped low over the earth. The warrior dead, Domnall knelt and wept until he had no tears left. End. Book 15. The Ring of Dane Thardwine was written and performed by Michael Frutig. If you have enjoyed this episode, please consider supporting the project on Patreon. Supporters get text files of each chapter, as well as access to Q&A posts, other writing projects, such as flash fiction and chapters of other works. Go to patreon.com/michaelfrutig for more. patreon.com/MICHAELFRUTIG. Thank you.